Welcome to Pilot Talk Podcast. My name's René Banglesdorf and I'm your host. And today I am going for the top of the heap. I am talking to my good friend Bill Bryant about the Falcon 7X. Bill, I know you're in snowy Toronto. Let's talk airplanes and maybe heat it up a little bit.
How are you doing, Renee? Yes, absolutely. Would love to talk to you about the 7X. Fantastic aircraft, and I've had the pleasure to fly three of these aircraft, three different serial numbers, and boy, what an exciting airplane from a pilot standpoint.
Totally consistent in the way that they handle?
Yeah, absolutely. Everywhere from a 2008 model to a 2013 model, very consistent.
So flying it, tell me what's different about flying the 7X. Obviously, you didn't start your career in this airplane. How's it different than other airplanes that you've flown?
The most noticeable difference is, and I get this from a lot of first-time pilots, the first time you get in the simulator to fly the fly-by-wire technology, it is so user-friendly and easy. I say my 14-year-old son who plays video games could easily fly this aircraft. It's basically, you point it where you want it to go, you can let go of the side stick, and it flies exactly where you put it. It's so user-friendly.
That is incredible. So let's talk about performance. I mean, obviously it's a pilot's dream from a handling perspective. How does it perform compared to what you were expecting when you first started flying it?
One of the most noticeable differences is there's a lot of thrust to weight ratio. So it's one thing I had to brief our regular passengers on during the first flight, that the airplane accelerates very quickly down the runway, especially with light fuel loads. The aircraft is flown the same way, whether it's very light or very heavy full of fuel. That is, you rotate exactly the same, and you get to your climb attitude. It's the same cabin pitch attitude all the way up to cruise altitude, whether you're light or whether you're heavy. So that's one big noticeable difference in the performance of the aircraft. The airplane can go straight to flight level 390 at full gross takeoff weight at ISA plus 10 at Mach 8.0. So, I mean, it's an amazing performance aircraft.
Like if you could order all the specifications for an airplane, those sound like all the things you'd want on it.
It is. I mean, having three engines, you have the safety and reliability of three engines. When you lose an engine, when you're flying on one engine and operative techniques, it is exactly the same as having three engines. There's virtually no difference.
Well, that's just in the sim, right? That doesn't happen in real life.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've been flying corporate jets now for a little over 22 years, and I can tell you I've never had an engine problem on any business jet. They're very reliable.
Well, I'm glad to clarify that with you. So let's talk a little bit about any operational limitations that you noticed with the aircraft when you were flying it.
This aircraft, I really haven't noticed a lot of operational limitations per se. I mean, you are limited with regards to the range of 5,900 miles. But as far as getting to the altitudes you want to get to, getting in and out of the runways you want to get in and out of, shorter distances, shorter runways, it performs amazingly. So, but you do pay a price for that. I mean, it's not an inexpensive aircraft to acquire. And you've got that third engine as well. But being so, you get performance unlike any other aircraft.
So tell me, one of the things that costs a lot on aircraft is the fuel, obviously. Tell me about the fuel burn that you've noticed when you're operating the 7X.
Well, this aircraft has three smaller jet engines. So the engines put out a little over 6,000 pounds of thrust each. So when you look at an aircraft of the same size of the two-engine aircraft, the fuel burn is almost identical. Even though you have three engines, especially when you can get up higher with this airplane. As I said, full gross takeoff weight, you're getting up to at least flight level 390, regularly cruising at flight level 450, 430, where your fuel burn is getting way down to under 2,000 pounds an hour for all three engines.
What's the longest trip that you've taken in a Falcon 7X, Bill?
The longest trip I've done is a direct flight from Toronto to Tel Aviv. We were 10 hours and 30 minutes. Now, the aircraft, and I've spoken many times to other pilots that have ran the aircraft maximum distance, they regularly get 12 hours and 15 minutes out of the aircraft. If you're flying into an area of VFR weather, where you've got alternates, you can fly the aircraft for about 12 hours and 20 minutes at Mach 8.0.
Well, tell me a little bit about, let's switch from where you are. Actually, you know what? I want to ask you a personal question here, because you're a tall guy. I've met you in person. You're Canadian, so I want to say you're pushing 2 meters, but here in the States, you're well over 6 feet, 6'5", 6'6". What's it like sitting in the cockpit as a tall guy?
Well, the Falcon, it's a large corporate jet, so there is a lot of room up front, even for someone my height at 6'5". Smaller aircraft like the Citation jets, yeah, it's a little tight. But the Falcon jet, lots of room. When you put in the heads-up display system, you do lose a few inches of headroom because the camera sits right above your head. So, but you can still line up with the eye wheel height just fine.
And then, so moving back just a little bit, tell me about the galley, the flight attendant experience in the plane. What are you hearing from the flight attendants about doing service in the aircraft?
Well, the aircraft has one complaint when it comes to the flight attendant, and that is that the galley is small. And that's typical of Falcon jets. Even the 900s have a small galley. Now, the 7X comes with 2 different configurations, whether you want a crew rest area or not. If you do get a crew rest area up front, you're taking up a lot of galley space, and I can guarantee you your flight attendant is going to have that crew rest area full of catering and extra supplies because there's nowhere else to store them. So that is the complaint, especially when you're serving 10 or 12 hot meals. There's not a lot of room in the galley. Well, one of the other, and that's probably the worst part about the aircraft overall, is just a small galley. As far as the cabin goes, the flight attendant and passengers, one of the best comments that we hear of is that the airplane is incredibly quiet inside. Whether you're sitting up front in the forward club seating or having a snooze on the back couch, in the engines, the sound is the same. It's very quiet throughout the aircraft.
And then what about the seating and the accommodations and the lav? What do you hear about that from your passengers?
Well, the airplane does have 2 lavatories. You have a small crew lab up front, which is great. When you get into this size aircraft where you're flying 10 or 12 hours, it's nice to have crew to have their own lavatory, so you virtually never have to go in the back of the aircraft to disturb the passengers. The rear lavatory is a great size as well, and you can access the baggage compartment anytime flight up to flight level 410. So it really is a convenience that way, the lavatory. The seating arrangements are great. I've flown 3 different types of 3 different configurations. The couch is easy to extend and turn into a bed, and the aircraft is very roomy. And one thing about the 7X that you'll notice that it's very different from any other large corporate jet, including the Gulfstreams and the Global Expresses, is that there's several windows on the aircraft. So you get a lot of natural light. So when you're in the cabin, all those windows are natural light. It really gives you the appearance, the feel of an even larger airplane.
So one thing that I've been hearing a lot from all the pilots that I've been interviewing for these podcasts is a really significant difference in the loading of the luggage. And I know in this airplane, you're probably not loading luggage. You probably have linemen helping load luggage, but what's that like from a crew standpoint, loading luggage in the plane?
Well, this aircraft, unfortunately, you cannot open the cargo door, the baggage door, from the inside of the aircraft, only from the outside. So the way the airplane is designed, and probably the hardest thing to get used to from a pilot standpoint, is the operation of the baggage door. Because it is very large and it's very affected by wind gusts, you have to be very careful with the large baggage door. But the way we load this aircraft as compared to a Challenger is that one crew member has to go outside and actually pop open the baggage door, open it up, or a line crew. When you're in other aircraft where you can open up the baggage door from the inside, open up yourself from the inside, and usually the baggage handler stands here and you can start unloading the baggage. The size of the baggage compartment is enormous. I mean, you never have a problem. Even if you have 12 passengers with 12 sets of golf clubs and overnight bags, there's lots of room back there.
Well, that is good. Definitely good to hear. So good range, nice cabin, easy to fly. Definitely is not the cheapest aircraft out there. So I'm hearing some great pros and, one maybe price and con about the aircraft. Are there any other pros and cons that you can think of? Are there any chronic maintenance issues that you've heard of with this line of aircraft?
Well, the airplane is the first business jet in the world to come out with fly-by-wire technology. So, of course, they did have some issues in the earlier stages with the fly-by-wire. Those modifications have all been looked after now, and the reliability on the aircraft is 99.5%. It's very, very reliable aircraft. The airplane itself, one of the biggest maintenance issues has been the corrosion in the fuel tanks. And most aircraft now that are being produced have the new environmentally friendly corrosion material being sprayed inside the fuel tanks to prevent corrosion. But if you're going to buy a 7X that's 5, 6, 7 years old, that's one of the largest findings is corrosion in the fuel tanks, and have to reapply this environmentally friendly internal tank corrosion.
Very, very interesting to know. Okay, any more secrets I need to know about the Falcon 7X before we wrap this up today?
Yeah, don't let your boss fly it. It's really easy to fly.
Well, it just sounds like a fantastic airplane. Bill, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for being on the Pilot Talk podcast with me today. Y'all, if you found this useful, hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel where you found this, or listen to it on iTunes. You can also follow me on social media at René Banglesdorf on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Or you can follow my company, Charlie Bravo Aviation, on those same channels. Bill, if somebody wants to steal you away and hire you, how would they contact you?
Email is best. That's Bill without the I, BLLBRYANT at yahoo.ca. And it's CA for Canada.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here.